All right, I think we're live. Good morning, everybody. This is Samantha Studebaker Carl coming at you from beautiful Hudson, Florida, and welcome to our Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm here with my friends Danielle and Dan and Jason, and Catherine's out there. She's actually going to be commenting on our event page because she's not feeling real well, so I want everybody just to send her some warm and healthy, wonderful healing energy towards her because I know that she's been fighting some stuff here for a little while, and we really want her to feel better. So everybody just take a moment and think about Catherine and how awesome she is and just send her love. That's the highest energy that you can send her. So if you can do that, I would really, really appreciate it. And I know she would too. So anyway, guys, we are studying the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People in the Digital Age. And let me just kind of show you real quick where we're at in this book. And by the way, if you have not gotten this book already, there'll be a link in the description on our event page. And of course, you can always find our most recent event page just by visiting SaturdayMorningMastermind.com. And like I said, in that description, you'll find a link to get the book for like $4.50 on Amazon. But anyway, let's see. We are in chapter, let me see what number we're in. Chapter 2, I think. Let's see. Yeah, part 2, 6 ways to make a lasting impression, and then we are in part 5 of part 2, or chapter 5 of part 2, however you want to say that. And it's about discuss what matters to them, you know, and I had put in the title that, you know, we were going to be talking about the most important way or the most important techniques that you can use to gain trust with your prospects. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that this chapter. We're going to discuss that, our thoughts and our insights along that lines, and then we're also going to be sharing with you some practical tips that you can use to implement this strategy in person or online or over the phone. You know, Danielle's are really great at talking with people over the phone, so she'll be sharing some tips with you on that, and then we'll all just be kind of sharing our insights. But before we get going, I want everybody to have a chance to introduce themselves. And so if you are out there online, you're watching, go ahead and comment on our page. Let us know where you're hanging out from. And then, of course, share your insights as well as we go on. If you have a thought about what we're talking about, or if you want to share something that you read in the chapter that you thought was an important lesson, then go ahead and share that on our event page. And if you happen to be watching this as a replay, you can comment on the YouTube channel or you can comment on the event page. Either one, we'll definitely be getting back to you whenever you leave us a comment. So with that, go ahead and Dan, why don't you start us off and just introduce yourself, and then Jason and Danielle.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dan Smith. I come from beautiful Boise, Idaho, and welcome everybody to the call this morning.
Good morning, everybody. This is Jason Roberts in St. Petersburg, Florida. I'm so grateful for everyone that you're out today, and good morning, and so happy to be on today.
Good morning, everybody. Danielle DeLyons out in Anaheim, California, right next to Disneyland, and it's a great sunny day. We've had pouring rain all week, so we're thankful for some sun, and excited to get going here today with everybody.
Awesome, 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 guys. So glad to have you on here with us. Let's see, let me scroll down the page here and see. Of course, we have Catherine out there. Hello, Catherine. We love you. Let's see, we've got Linda. Good morning, Linda. BG. Let's see who else is there. Russell. Awesome, awesome, guys. Go ahead and comment on the page if you're hanging out with us. We'd love to hear from you. Okay, so to start this chapter out, you know, I was just kind of reviewing the first couple of paragraphs of this, and it was talking about this story where, you know, there's these two guys, and they're having a conversation, and the one guy's just talking on and 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 on about himself and his own thing and whatever it is, and the other guy goes, you know, we know everything in the world now because you know everything except for this one thing that you are boring, and I know that you're boring. And I thought that was just the funniest thing because, how many times have we experienced this where, we're hanging out with somebody or, we're looking at someone's profile or we're talking to somebody on the phone and that other person just goes on and on and on and on and on about, their own personal drama or their own personal whatever it is. And you're just sitting there going, oh, God, I'm so bored. And when you start to think about that, and you think about all those experiences that you've had with people, and then you try and you contemplate what it's like if somebody is hanging out with you and you're trying to talk to them about your business. If you kind of look at it that way and all you're doing is talking about yourself, then you probably are doing the same thing to them, right? And I thought it was interesting because in our pre-mastermind discussion, Dan mentioned something about the sleazy salesman and how he was like, saying that they just go on and all they do is talk about themselves and they don't even care what you think about and all of those kinds of things. And I'm just like, that's so true, and that's kind of that impression that you give people when you just go on and on and on about yourself and your own business, and you can't really gain that trust with somebody if you take no interest in what they're interested in. And so that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. But if you guys have anything you want to add before we really kind of get into any of this, and jump in and just add your thoughts, because I know we had a little bit of discussion, kind of pre-mastermind discussion going on, if you guys wanted to comment on any of those.
I really like the second portion of that first chapter, or the first page, because it was talking about that in today's world it's changed so much that the majority of people out there communicating on social media, they're making it all about themselves and what's going on in their life, thinking that everybody needs to know what's happening, where I'm eating, and what I'm doing every second of my day. And it's, I like how it says that this appears to be an assertive strategy. It's actually a passive strategy, and that it requires others to connect with us. And in marketing, it says when the assumption guides our efforts to befriend or influence others, the result ends up in the wrong side of memorable. And that goes along with it. People will remember you more by you being interested in them than they having to be interested in you. And in fact, I love this chapter because there's been so many times where people, if you're not talking about yourself at all, they can't help themselves. They want to know about you, and it's kind of remembering that as we go through this chapter, that if you can make it less about you and assuming that they want to know who you are and making it about them, it naturally will compel them to ask you, and it's a better balance, really.
I think this is something that so many people are really terrible at. Just not listening, but talking, and so I'm eager to hear what everyone has to say about it. I think that you're probably right, Danielle, that it's compounded with the social networks that we're trying to use, and I think that most of us aren't really very good at communicating effectively, and we do just sort of over talk, as I'm doing right now. So, but very important stuff, I think. So get to it.
I think it's really interesting. I got to admit, I still haven't picked up the new book, so I'm still reading out of the old book. And there's a story in here about President Theodore Roosevelt. Says whenever Roosevelt expected a visitor, he sat up late the night before reading up on the subject in which he knew that his guest was particularly interested. For Roosevelt knew, as all leaders know, that the royal road to a person's heart is to talk about the things that he or she is interested in most. And that's what I talked about a little bit on the pre-mastermind there, that my concept of sales was totally off. And I wished I could say I had this learned. I'm in the process of learning this. That when I first started getting involved with sales and that type of thing was that I thought that you had to be so excited about your product or your service or your company or whatever you're trying to influence the other person for, that you just literally vomited all over them, and that if you just kept excited and kept going and going and going and going and going and going and going, that the person would have to get excited, and not realizing that the more you vomit on people, the more you repel people. And everybody likes to buy, but nobody wants to be sold. And how often do you go walking through a store, looking at furniture or whatever, and the salesman comes over and says, "May I help you?" And the first instinct is no, like, go away, get away from me, you weirdo! I don't even want to talk to you, And then and I find myself doing that. That's my initial first response is no, I don't want to talk to you, go away from me. And then almost immediately a question will pop into my mind. And then I will have a question, and then yeah, I do actually want to talk to you. I just don't want you jumping down my throat, and dumping on me, because I don't want that. And that's why sales has got such a bad rap, because so many salespeople do that. I mean, I was so angry at a salesperson one time I was about ready to smack him. The ex-biker in me was about ready to come out. I was about ready to, lay him out. I'd had it, And so, if there's a certain amount of finesse, that you actually have to have. You actually have to approach that person from their need, and not your want, your need or desire to shove your sales pitch down their throat to the point where that thinking that through your sheer excitement that they're going to get excited as well, because it has the opposite effect. It actually drives people away from you. So I'll turn it over to somebody else.
Dan has me in hysterics because it just reminded me of how you see movies and things and they depict salesmen out there, and I love the post that was put up on the group page today. Yeah, I don't care if you're not going to buy what I want you to buy, you're going to buy it. And it's kind of along that adage, and it just brought to my mind one time. Whenever we would go to purchase a new car, we would go late at night because we always considered car salesmen sharks, and I couldn't stand them. They're one of the worst. And so I always knew ahead of time exactly the car, what color, everything I wanted in it before I'd buy it. And I remember one time going to a car lot and going to purchase a brand new van, and the salesman kept trying to tell us, no, you're going to buy this car. No, I have 5 kids. I need a van, And he was insistent on trying to sell me something other than what I wanted. And so again, Dan, you nailed it. It's understanding, and there is a finesse to it, and so many miss the mark. So this is a great discussion for this.
That is so funny, Danielle. I've been, we always try and do the same thing. We never want to get out of the car when we're car shopping, because as soon as you roll your window down or as soon as you get out of the car, they're like right there on you, and that's just the most annoying thing. But I can't believe, I can believe that they actually were trying to sell you something that you didn't want, even though you knew exactly what you wanted. But that's just so funny because I think that it brings up the whole conversation, because if we're talking about multi-level marketing, or we're talking about sales in a small business or that sort of thing, and we're trying to talk to people that are in our little scope of influence, is that when you aren't paying attention to what anybody else wants, how can you possibly know what is going to be the best thing to sell them? And of course, if all you're doing is focus on yourself, then you can't know what everybody else wants. And so that's where it comes down to, this chapter talks about discussing what matters to them. And of course, it's saying that, when you start having conversations about that other person or about the things that that other person is interested in, then all of a sudden that kind of lifts you way up above everybody else that's out there. So for instance, in that situation where Danielle was at that car sales, car dealership, and the guy was trying to sell her something she didn't have any interest in, if she had just, say, gone to another car dealership and this other salesman came up and was like, so what are you looking for? What do you need? What's the most important feature in a vehicle that you're looking for? Or, start asking those kind of questions, and she'd be like, well, I have 5 kids. I really want I want the upholstery to be cleaned. I want to be able to sweep it out fast. I want it to stop fast. I want it to be safe. I want all these things. And the person could be like, okay, well, we have this and this one, this and this, and these are the ones that have those features or whatever. And then all of a sudden it becomes an easy conversation, and that salesman actually becomes a helper or an advisor, versus being somebody who's just sitting there trying to shove something down your throat that you don't want. And what was interesting is we kind of had a similar couple of situations when we were hunting for our RV. We'd go to one place and they're just trying to sell us whatever the most expensive thing is on the lot, and then we go to another place and we end up talking to this guy for like 40 minutes because he's actually helping us learn more about the types of RVs that we're looking for, because he's asking us questions. He was wanting to know what we were looking for, and then he was talking about each of the different manufacturers, and he was kind of giving us more information that helped us answer our own questions. And I think that when we can do the same thing, because a lot of times people are looking for exactly what it is that you have to offer, but they don't know whether or not your thing is going to be the best thing for them. And so when you start asking them questions and really getting to know them better, then you can help them by guiding them by asking the correct questions and by informing them and letting them know about your product and how that answers those questions. And sometimes, like Danielle has mentioned before, sometimes the person is not going to be right for you, but because you took that time to have that conversation with them and you acted more as an advisor versus a person who's just trying to force something down their throat, then that person also will refer people to you. So that's a super powerful thing. And, it was reading in here, it says, once you know what matters to others through a practice of listening, placing your matters in a holding pattern is the only way to truly engage others with a steady diet of what they care about. And as with most meaningful risk, the reward is commensurate. Subsequent influence is more potent, and there soon comes a time when what matters to you matters to them. And that's kind of that's what we're talking about. Before we move on, though, I want to just welcome a couple other people that are posting on our page, and welcome, Marlene. I saw that you had posted there. We're glad to have you. Good morning, Donna. Let's see. Catherine's got a couple comments here. She says, appreciate you all. Oh, yes, too many to list, Dan. Let's see. I agree, Danielle. Unfortunately, that is the way many companies teach. Dan, I think we all start out that way and hopefully quickly figure out it is not the way. Yeah, absolutely. Marlene says, oh, I'm having connection problems. So, well, thank you all for what you have shared, and we'll watch the recording. Okay, no problem. No problem. Understand that. Yeah, that was another thing I was kind of thinking is when Dan was talking about the sleazy salesman, and and then of course when we're just talking about our own businesses and we can't stop talking about it, and it kind of turns people off in multiple ways, because A, they really aren't interested in you if all you're doing is talking about yourself, but B, it also kind of turns them off the industry. And it kind of, makes them think, God, I don't want to be that way. I don't want to be that sleazy salesman. I don't want to be that person who won't ever shut up, And so that turns them off as well. And so when you can actually talk to people in a way that, they realize that you care about them, then all of a sudden they're like, oh, okay, well, maybe I will actually listen to your advice because you have shown that you truly care about what my thoughts are. So what do you guys think?
I have to agree with you on that, Samantha. In fact, I was sharing a story about a young lady, and one of the things that I do to diffuse people probably at a beginning of a conversation is that I said, one of the things I say is, I'm so glad I have a new friend, and that immediately is like, oh, wow, she's not here trying to sell me. She's looking at me as her friend. So tell me all about yourself. I want to know about you. I want to make sure that you see that whatever I suggest to you today is going to help you. That's my number one goal, and just kind of diffusing the idea in their mind that I'm there to pitch them on my product or try to sell to them. A lot of times just those few little statements seems to warm people up to me, and I can spend a long time on the phone, but I don't mind because they give me their hot buttons because I've taken a huge fence down right off the bat. And them telling me what they need, then I can ask their permission. That's another thing I do. I don't assume ever. I'll say, you know, may I have your permission to make some suggestions based on what you shared with me? I believe I might have something that might interest you, but you tell me. And I let them, just like it's talking about here, that everyone is wrong about influence except your customers. And if you're talking business, the process is about putting the customer back into customer relationship management. And I really like the way that was put, because really it is the customer saying, hey, I'm spending my money with you. Let me tell you what I need and what I'm willing to spend my money on. But if I trust you and you know what you're doing to help me, I'm going to allow you to do that and allow you, because I trust you, to tell me how to spend my money. So it's kind of a song and dance kind of process a lot of times.
Had a thought going through my head, and it kind of drifted in and drifted through and went out the other side. Yeah, I got too many thoughts going on up here. You know, years ago when I first I got involved with Amway back in the mid-'70s, and one of the things that just really absolutely blew my mind back then was just exactly what we're talking about. You know, that my impression of sales, only based on what I saw on television, and like, you know, Danielle talking about car salesmen, you know, that shoving things down your throat, was that you had to, you know, raise your excitement level, your vibration, and transfer your vibration to that person, you know. But the biggest pins in that business, as I listened to them, the more I listened to them, I was amazed with how little that they actually told people. That they would like throw out a hint, kind of like throwing a dog a small bone, but then they would shut up. And that invariably the person that they was talking to, a seed had been planted in their mind, and somewhere during the conversation, maybe 4 or 5 minutes later, they you know, like, stress, now what did you say about, you know, and the leader in that business would they would actually make them drag information out of them, and they would continue not purposely not flooding that person with information, because the more that you flood the person, the more you back that person up. But the less, you know, less is more in this case, and the less that you'd actually say in that situation, that the person would be drawn towards you. And it's a shift in mindset. And like I said earlier, I still don't have this learned. I'm in the process of learning this. I wish that I could say that I have it learned and that I have it nailed down, but I don't. And I've got another book. I wish that I brought it into the room here with me. It's out in the living room. And a guy named Stephen Schiffman, he's a professional salesman. That's all he's ever done in his whole entire life. And he's talking about this very subject, where that most salesmen will go into a company when they're trying to make, you know, sell to a corporation or a company or whatever, and it's kind of one size fits all. It's like the poster that was listed on the, I think the Facebook page there, that I don't care if you don't want to buy this, I'm going to sell this to you, and it's only one size fits all, so everybody has to fall within this guideline, and I'm just going to read my brochure here, and you're going to have to agree that, you know, this is what you need. I don't really care what your needs are. You're going to buy this product. And there's a word that he calls it. I can't remember what it is, but I mean, basically boils down to stupidity on the part of the salesman, that you actually have to go in and interview the person and find out what their needs are. What are your needs? and maybe my product won't actually help you. I might not be able to help you, but let's explore this together and see if we can arrive at a successful conclusion here. Then yeah, we can do some business, but otherwise I'm not going to try to, it's like if you went to a tailor and had a suit of clothes made, and one sleeve came out the top of your shoulder over here and one came out the armpit, but you have to try to fit into this because everybody else is doing it. No, I don't want to fit into that coat. And so anyways, I'm rambling here. I'll turn it over to somebody else.
Hey, some great points, Dan. I guess the name of the game is just showing genuine interest in your prospects if they are a prospect. Um, you know, most of my experience is in sales of either business to business or just with a niche customer lead pool, and I think a lot of people are more familiar with that, working a traditional job in sales where you have your leads are already in a niche. You already know that these people need what or want what you are selling. But if you're in multi-level marketing or interpersonal marketing, or you have your own business, the sales approach is quite different. But in each one, learning and getting to know your customer or your potential customer is key. And you'll hear it time and time again that they recommend that you touch base with your customers 3 to 5 times before you're going to make a sale. And so if you come out and the first time you meet somebody and introduce yourself, you instead of taking a genuine interest in what their needs are and finding out how they want to approach acquiring their solution, but instead you just pitch them and continue to pitch them, well, you probably won't get to the 5th interaction, let alone the second one, because they're going to see you coming and they're going to turn and run. So at a company I worked with recently, it was business to business, and the management had they were really vague in what they wanted the sales team to do, because on one side they wanted you to get to know the customer, on the other side they wanted sales on the board right away. And when you're dealing with people that are professional in their field, and they certainly don't want to be pitched with every call. That's why they have secretaries and gatekeepers. And they also don't want to be just they don't want to be, what's the word when you're just showing some, when you're being fake about it, but you have to understand, I think that you can't have both. You can't force it, and you also you can't force it so that you get a sale right away, and you can't and you shouldn't be asking so many questions that you're not really that you're coming across fake. So I think there is a balance to it, and I think if we all kind of settle into really listening and being genuinely interested, then it'll sort of come to us over time. So that's a little bit of input I have.
I got a question for everybody, and make an admission here this morning, because sales has been a challenge for me. I mean, it's what I want to do, and it's what I work on. And yet, here's the challenge that I've had over the years, is that when somebody tells me no, I take it personally. I don't hear just, no, I don't want to buy your product, or no, I don't want to join your company. I hear, no, you're an idiot and you're a loser, and I can't believe you're trying to sucker me into your deal. Has anybody else ever experienced that, and how have you dealt with it?
Oh yeah, sure. Sure. I think that's human nature, Dan, for you to take that, for us to take it personally. Um, but and it probably takes a little practice to get over that, especially when we're so personally involved in our own businesses. And um, that's a very good point. Anyone else?
Oh yeah, you nailed it. It's taken years for me to understand not to take it personally, and I still do from time to time, especially when I feel like I've developed a relationship with somebody and I don't feel like I was pushy or that they were asking the right questions. And I don't know if I shared this just a couple weeks ago. There was a girl that just was hounding me, and I thought, oh my goodness, she's all over this, and then all of a sudden, poof, she stopped answering my inquiries. And I did take it a little personal, so I took it a step further. And actually, it turned out well for me because I came to her and I said, did I overwhelm you or did I say too much? I personally took the responsibility for it. And yet at the same time, she goes, no, it was me. And I thought, okay, so yeah, it's an assumption we put on ourselves, but it's also that thing that to remember it's never about you. Not always, but a lot of times it is them. And we have to remind ourselves of that so that we don't get caught up in, because we're constantly beating ourselves up, really. That's how I feel about it. And not everybody's going to buy your stuff. That's just like a grocery store. Somebody going down the cereal aisle, for example, and they don't buy one brand opposed to another, and it's Raisin Bran, and there's 4 different types of Raisin Bran brands. They might decide to buy another brand other than yours. The Raisin Bran companies don't get it taken personally, and we have to kind of learn how to do that. And it's not an easy thing to do, Dan. It really isn't.
Yeah, that's a great point, Dan, because, and that brings up why we do this mastermind, too, because, ultimately it's all about personal development when we kind of look at it that way, because you have to work on yourself and realize that, just because somebody isn't wanting to join your business or doesn't want to buy your product, it's not about you. And, so I thought that was a great point for you to bring up. I had another thought. Let's see. Oh, when you were talking about, Jason, when you were talking about making 5 connections with a potential client before you actually made a sale, I thought that was a really, really great point to remember, is that, so much of the time we come into business and we want to make sales right away. We want to get those sales, make some money, make it happen, get busy. We're so excited, all these things. But we forget to realize that you have to develop relationships with somebody first, because you can't just expect them to just buy as soon as you say, I have something for sale. You've got to develop that relationship, and that's something that takes time. And I think we've discussed this before on this hangout, is the fact that, you've got to take the time to get to know people. And some people, it's going to take multiple interactions with them over a period of many months before they feel comfortable with you. And then other people, you're going to have a conversation with them, you'll be able to get to know them over a couple of days, and then they'll be interested. And then there's other people who, you'll get to know them, or they'll just kind of hang out there in the background and watch what you're doing, ask you a question every now and then 2 years from now they'll be interested. I mean, you just never know with people. And when you go into it with the attitude of, okay, every day I'm going to make some new friends, I'm going to get to know some new people, and not be so focused on making sales and be more focused on just making friends, then I think that can make a big difference in your overall kind of stress level about your business, or about your self-confidence and that sort of thing too. Because when you put all that pressure on yourself to make those sales, when that doesn't happen, then of course you're disappointed you didn't make sales. You ask yourself what's wrong with you. You say, why aren't I doing this? You start asking all these questions that it kind of that personal development, it helps lift you up. but then you're not getting the results that you want, and so you're not meeting your own expectations, and so then you dog yourself down, you talk yourself down, and that's kind of what ends up happening a lot of times. And it's a reason why so many people quit the industry also, is because they think, why, I can't make these sales in 5 minutes, I must not be good enough, and it's a sad way to look at it, but the truth is that happens for a lot of people. So, and that's when we start talking about, you really get to know some of these very, very successful leaders in our industry, and that's what they always say, don't make it about yourself, make it about the other person, focus on the other person, and what they're always saying is, how can you help another person? Stop making it about yourself and just put yourself out there and be the helpful servant, if you will. So that's a powerful thing. So Catherine just posted it on the page here. Let me just read what she says. Okay, I think the internet is a fantastic way to make friends and find people to help, but I also find that some people seem to think there isn't a real person on the other end. I find it hard to believe that people actually treat people in person like they do on the internet sometimes. Somehow they lose respect for others and themselves by hiding behind a monitor and a keyboard. It's funny because I came to the internet because I didn't want to be on the phone. Now I just use the internet for initial connection and then try to take it on the phone. LOL. Dan, I think we all go through that. That is one of the reasons why personal development is so key. That's absolutely right, Catherine. And when you were when you wrote in the pre-mastermind discussion, you were talking about the difference between having a lot of followers and actually making friends is, and it talks about that in this book too, is that, quantity over quality is not the way to be. You've got to, really develop those relationships. It's better to have a few people that you're well connected with than it is to have thousands of people who you aren't all that well connected with, or you don't know very well, because you're not going to have any real influence with them in any way. And it talks about that a lot in this chapter, because of course in this particular version of the book, being that it's the digital, talking about influencing people in the digital age, it talks a lot about followers and readers of your blog and websites and traffic and all that kind of stuff, and realistically, you want to be able to connect with as many people as you can, but you want to do it in such a way that you actually get to know people. I was watching this Facebook training not too long ago, and there was this one woman, and she was just being really, really successful, interacting with people through Facebook and connecting with people through Facebook. And one of the misconceptions that a lot of people have is that you have to have your full 5,000 friends in order to, be successful with your business. Well, this woman had like 600 friends, and that was it, and she was highly successful with her business, and that was just kind of like a smack in the face, to everybody who thinks you got to have thousands and thousands and thousands of followers, and but it's that making that personal connection with them. So I'll let somebody else talk. Oh, hey Sandy, did you get your sound working?
I don't know. Can you hear me?
We can. Hey.
I didn't do anything, so I don't know what happened the other day.
That's so weird.
Yeah. I'll just listen for now. I just don't know what's going on just yet.
I have a couple of examples that I want to talk about, and one of the examples actually comes from the scriptures, and it's talking about 4 different soil types there. And it starts out talking about a farmer goes out to sow his seed, and as he sowed the seed, some of it fell onto the wayside, some fell among the stony ground, some fell among the thorns, and some fell onto the good soil. And the wayside, that's a hard path. That's where people are walking, and the ground is really super hard. And it says that the birds came down and they ate the seed. So that seed's lost. That's gone. And then there's some seed that fell onto the stony ground, and there's a lot of rocks there. And it says when the sun came up that the seeds popped up, so they sprouted. But they had no depth of soil, and so as soon as the sun was, at the height of the day, then it was too hot. The plants were scorched and they died. So that soil's gone. And then some fell among the thorns, and the thorns actually grew up and choked out the seed, so it didn't get a chance to ever really what you call grow. and then some fell into the good soil, and that good soil brought forth fruit. And so out of the 4 seeds that was sown, only one of them grew. You had 3 soil types there that didn't produce any crop for that farmer. And then it goes on to talk about that the sower sows the word, and it's actually talking about that the seeds that were sown, it was only drawn a parallel that the seeds themselves were that he was talking about was words, and that you can relate that to, that there's an acceptable amount of waste when you're actually talking to different people, that if 3 people out of 4 that you talk to aren't interested in what you're actually talking about, that is an acceptable amount of waste. And I see waste in all different kinds of things. Like we have apple trees here on our property, and a lot of the apples have wormholes in them, and so I still want to eat the apple, but obviously I don't want to eat the wormhole. So you start cutting that apple up, you cut out the part where the worm has bored through, and you throw that away, and you keep the stuff that's good. Well, that's the good portion, and you eliminate the waste. And so I have raspberry plants here on my property. I got about 100 feet of raspberry plants, and so we eat a lot of raspberries. I like raspberries. I put them into a shake that I have for breakfast every morning, and so like 365 days a year I eat raspberries. But when you're out picking raspberries in the summertime, some of them are just flowers, and then pretty soon they turn into a little hard green berry, but it's not ready to eat. And then after a while it's kind of half green and half red, but it's still not ready to eat. And then after a while it's all red, but it's still on the hard side, and it's not ready to eat yet. But then you can look at a berry like that in the morning, but by nighttime it's perfect, and it falls right off the vine. And when it's not ready, it doesn't come off of the vine. But when it's ready, ripe and ready to eat, it falls off very, very easily. And then some of them actually go too far, and when they get to the point where they're too ripe, you just pick them off and you throw them on the ground. I don't want to eat it. It's way, way, way too ripe. And when I transfer that over to human beings and look at that as a principle, I can see that, as the earlier example, some people, they might be that soil, that's that stony ground, or some people, their lives are full of weeds. They're choked out by thorns and thistles, and they're not ready to hear your message yet. And transfer that over to the raspberry plants. That some raspberries, we're all in different stages of growth, mentally, emotionally, physically. We're all in different places in our life. And so where a person's at today, they may have no interest whatsoever in what you do. But it's a matter of timing. And when the timing's right, then they're ready to hear your message. But if you don't plant the seed somewhere along the line, and like Samantha, I think you're the one that said it, sometimes it's 2 years later. I've heard of people like 4 or 5 and 6 years later, 7 years later, that a seed was planted that many years ago, and now they're mentally ready because their circumstances of their life have changed. They were happy with life as it was when you first showed the business to them, but over time their circumstances have changed. Now they're ready to hear. It's like the berry. Now that berry's ready it's ripe. It'll fall right off of the vine because it's ripe. It's ready to eat. It's time to consume it. So that's the way that I have, what I was talking about earlier, about rejection, that type of thing. It's the same thing with fishing. I like to fish. You put a worm on a hook and you throw it out in the hole, and the fish comes up and he strips the worm off. Well, I don't, oh my gosh, that fish took my worm. You don't lose sleep over that or anything like that. You just put another worm on there and throw it back out, and see if you can't hook him the next time. So anyway, I don't know if that makes sense to you all, but I'll turn it over to somebody else.
I love how you talked about, people's circumstances change over time. And, for an example, is, I've been around the multi-level marketing industry almost, I'm not going to say all my life, but ever since I was a teenager. My dad was in Amway when I was a teen, and, he was always trying to push me into multi-level marketing. He was like, oh, this is it, you got to do this, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, salesman, my dad is like the sleazy salesman, right? And, that was just my perception. It always wasn't really, but you know what I'm saying. It's because that's that automatic perception that we have about salesmen altogether, is that, they're just sleazy salesmen. Of course, that was back in the early 80s. So, they were still very, very much a salesman of the time. It was like he was like one of those guys off of what is that one show, the sales show back in the 70s or whatever? Oh, I can't remember what it was, but I'll think.
Herb on WKRP Cincinnati. Do you remember that?
No, there's like a I don't know. It doesn't matter. I'm kind of off topic anyway, but my point is that I was always around the multi-level marketing industry. I wasn't interested in it, back when I was a teen. I was busy thinking about other stuff, right? And my dad, he's been in it for years. He stayed in it and stayed in it and stayed in it, and was always pitching me something, sharing something different with me, saying you got to do this, you got to do that, and I went and I lived my life. I did my things. I went into pet business. We went into the dump trucking business, and then I was just fed up with it. I got fed up with what we were doing and the way that we were, having, the way our lives were working, and how everything that we did revolved around work. And, so it took me a lot of years to come around to the point where I was even open to the multi-level marketing industry, but because it was, my dad kept talking to me about it, he kept sharing with me, that seed was in my mind. And so when I was online looking for other options, trying to figure things out, what did I gravitate towards? Multi-level marketing, right? And, but I was looking for something that would work for me. And then one day my dad came to me and he says, hey, I got this deal and this is what it is, and da-da-da-da. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm in, and I got in, and this is that time that it completely changed everything in the way that I thought about multi-level marketing, is because my circumstances changed, my ideas about what I wanted for my life changed, everything changed, but it took a lot of years for that to happen, for me. And when we start to kind of look at other people in the same way, and we realize that they may not be at a point in their life where this is something that appeals to them in any way, shape, or form, but you can put that seed in their mind. You can say, this is what I'm doing, this is what I've got going on, and you just keep talking, not necessarily talking at them per se, but you just keep doing your own thing, and you start making connections with people, and you just connect and connect and connect with people, and and some people are going to be interested and some people aren't, and then one day somebody who wasn't may be, you just never know. But, I know we were going to kind of talk about a little bit about how to connect with people more on, online. And I know we kind of touched on this a little bit, but I wanted to read this one section because it really struck home with me. It was a really great lesson. I've kind of been studying a lot on this. And the one thing it says here, it says, true influence flows from drawing people together with shared interests. It's a process of identifying areas of relevancy among your customers, prospects, and community building, and allowing others to amplify your influence as you meet their needs. You are ultimately building a community when you initiate interactions with what matters to others. And then, let's see here. Okay, I don't need to read that part, but one thing that it kind of struck me is that, a lot of times, when we talk about learning to market on the internet, a lot of the leaders will tell you you've got to identify your target audience. And this is one of the main reasons why, because once you identify your target audience, and we're not talking about just a age group of people, we're talking about a very specific niche. When you decide who it is that you want to work with or bring into your business, and you really dig down into who that person is, then even if you aren't connected with people individually to start out with, you can start connecting with people based on what their interests are. And so, for example, if you're trying to build your say your Google Plus profile and you're trying to connect with the right people to actually start conversations with, you've got to say, okay, my main person that I'm interested in working with is this age group, is this is male or female, is has kids or doesn't have kids, or and then has interests in, say, personal development or fishing or whatever it is, and you start kind of defining out who that ideal person is. Then you can share the things that matter to those people that may or may not have anything to do with what your business is, but because you can share stuff that is interesting to them, it gives you a spot to connect with them. So, for instance, if you are in a I don't know, throw a business out there. Well, okay, we'll use Danielle for an example because she's in the It Works business, and we're not trying to pitch anybody on a business. We're just using it as an example. And of course, that is a health and wellness industry, and of course, weight loss and all of that kind of thing. So, if we were going to say look for people in a specific target audience, is there's so many people out there that want to lose weight or want to change their lifestyle or that sort of thing. When you can connect with a very specific group of people, say the 40 to 50-year-olds who like knitting and who enjoy personal development and who like to read I don't know, Better Homes and Gardens, or things like that. You start to develop, defining what those different things are. Then when you share stuff on your profile that is related to home care, i.e. Better Homes and Gardens kind of articles, weight loss tips, recipes, things that maybe are entertaining to those people. When you start sharing those things, what will happen is people kind of pop up from here, there, and everywhere and like your posts. And when you have people that like your posts, that's them indicating to you, hey, I like what you're talking about. So, i.e., you are sharing what matters to them, right? And it gives you a point to start a conversation, because if somebody says, oh, I really like that recipe for blah, 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 then you can be like, yeah, I found it here. Have you seen this other recipe? And then you start a conversation that has nothing to do with your business, but gives you a point of contact with that person. So that I wanted to make sure and share that in this discussion today. So if anybody has anything you want to add to that, then jump out. Share your thoughts.
I want to add to that because you nailed it, Samantha. So many people become part of my business and customers because of exactly what you just described. I do it all the time. And they almost cannot help themselves. I don't throw up my business on Google or Facebook a lot. I put posts every once in a while to kind of keep it fresh so that they know what I do. But some people just make it all about that business or all about that. I don't do that. I do just the opposite. And something that I did a training not too long ago at an event, and I was sharing with everybody, I'm still kind of clueless as to what I'm doing sometimes. I just do it. And I had noticed that I really started taking an interest in Google back in July of this year. I really didn't understand Google at all. I had not marketed on there. I had maybe a couple hundred followers, couple thousand views, nothing big. This is not meant as a bragging, but I really believe it's because of the content of what I put out there every day. Two things. Number one, I have about 7,300 followers, which may or may not mean anything. The smaller group, just like it talks about in this chapter, there is a small cluster of that following group that comment and like everything I do, and I've developed a lot of really great relationships with that small cluster of people. But what I find interesting is that I get massive amounts of likes on all my posts, and right now, like today, I'm at 2,381,000 views of my page, and it's because I've learned how to bring value to different groups of people. Although I do target a certain type of group of people, and I specifically go and do exactly what you described. I start conversations like this with these people, and I cannot tell you how many times they say to me, hey, I've been wanting to ask you about your product. And I saw that. Does it really work? You know, is it really what I see? And that opens the door, because then, they were watching. Yeah, I've been watching you. Like, I had one girl tell me, I've been watching you for a long time, and I've known some other people in your company, and they just tried to pitch me on your deal and try to get me to buy the product, and that just turned me off so bad, and I wasn't sure. But then I saw your post, and I started watching you, and I didn't even know this person was watching me. But it's in that process that they felt more and more comfortable, because I brought other types of value to the table, and it interested them. So we don't know. We're still kind of learning. It's a little different, I think, in sales now, where people used to go to a store, or even just a handful of years ago, they would go to a website and specifically know what they were looking for. Now we can bring so much more of a broader spectrum of who we are and what we have to the world, that it's changed that dynamic. And we're forgetting the importance of developing relationships. And one last thought that I mentioned this in the discussion, that I notice is there are people, even within my company, they sign tons of people up every day. It doesn't impress me. And I don't say this lightly, because what kind of relationships have you built? Yeah, you might have a high number of sales, but did you really build relationships? And then all of those people fall away. Whereas I might not have as high as sales, but I build relationships, and I get tons of referrals from people all the time, because I slowed down and I take more time with people. I just feel long term we build more valuable relationships and really truly do, just like this discussion's about, we influence people in a better way.
Yeah, that is so powerful, Danielle, and you know, just the slowing down. That's so key there, because you know, we're all in such a hurry to get to our success, you know, and that's perfectly normal for you to have that feeling. But when you really evaluate what you're doing and you kind of come up with a strategy, you realize that, you know, if you want a long-term strategy, you've got to take it slower. You've got to really make those connections with people. So that's so powerful. And you know, when you were talking about the Google Plus and how it just kind of all of a sudden people are asking you about your business, that is something that, you know, I've kind of wanted to just really shout from the rooftops to people, is that it becomes easier when you connect with your target audience. You actually share what matters to them, like what we're talking about in this chapter. When you talk about what matters to people, and most of the time when you talk about stuff that matters to people, it's not about your business. But when you're talking about the things that matter to people more, like 80% of the time, guys, we're talking about talk about the most, you know, things that interest people 80% of the time. And then, like Danielle was saying, is post on your page just here or there in between. It doesn't have to be a lot, because people will scroll down and see what you post. And if you have, say, once every 7th post is something about your business, all it is a simple reminder. Just like when you're watching television and you're watching TV because you want to see that TV show. You don't care about the ads, but those ads pop up, and they keep popping up, and they keep popping up, and they're just kind of in the background, but you're focused on your television show. You're interested in what you're watching on that show, and that's why you watch television, is because of the show, not because of the ads. So think of your Google Plus profile, your Facebook page, or your whatever, as the show. Be the show. Be the thing that people are interested in. And then your posts about your business, make them fewer and farther between, and kind of think of those as the commercials. And that can change the whole dynamic of your business on the internet, particularly, you know. And then all of a sudden you're going to have people, like Danielle said, oh, you know, I've been meaning to ask you about your business, you know, because you're having a conversation about something else, and all of a sudden they feel comfortable with you. So, you know, before we close out for today, I know we're right at the top of the hour, but I want to make sure that if you had something you want to add, Sandy, to go ahead and jump out, and then Catherine's got a comment, and I want to make sure and read on the page too before we close it for today.
Sure. Yeah, I totally agree. It's funny because I was busy the past few weeks creating a course, and I wasn't posting so much business stuff on my wall, but just because of what I've been posting, people just come to me like, what do you do? Like, I share, okay, maybe they want acupuncture, maybe they want my course, maybe they want to know about my business. So I just get an idea of, okay, what part of what I do would they be interested in? And it's so true. People just, they want to know more about you and your business when you're just being yourself, when you're not out there throwing your links all over. Like if I go to a wall where it's just straight business, 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 I just jump off that page. I'm like, I don't know who that person is. It's just the business. People want to know who you are, and even if you're not posting business posts and they're intrigued by you and inspired by you, they'll want to know what you're doing. They'll be like, what do you do? And so they're just attracted that way. So yeah, everything you were saying, Danielle and Samantha, was spot on about that. So yeah, I just wanted to add that on. That I totally agree. And sorry I was late today, but here I am. And thanks everybody who's came out to watch.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, let me read what Catherine wrote on here real quick. Let's see. I'll make sure I'm not rereading what I already read. Okay. Yeah, okay. Yay, Sandy made it. That's so true, Dan. So many times we take full responsibility for things that we have absolutely no control over. As entrepreneurs and team builders, of course, we want to help our people in any way we can, but ultimately it is also their business, and their success will be determined by their efforts. We can only offer the tools, knowledge, support, and guidance. They have to engage, though. Because of those doubts, we tend to assume all sorts of things, but sometimes life just gets in the way. LOL. That's awesome, Catherine. And then she also says, build it once, build it right. You are spot on, Danielle. Absolutely. Awesome, awesome, guys. Does anybody want to add anything else before we final out for today? Any final thoughts?
I just wanted to draw attention to what you posted, Samantha, on the pre-mastermind discussion. I thought that was very helpful. A lot of value in that post about the most important lesson that you saw in this chapter. I just encourage everyone to go check that out, because there's a lot of really good information in that. Obviously, from the value that you've brought because of your experience. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
No problem. Glad to help. Glad to help. Anybody else? Nope. Okay, awesome. Thanks, everybody, so much for adding your thoughts and insights to this, and thank you, Catherine, for jumping out there on the page, and thank you to everybody else who's watching. We're glad to have you on here. And if you want to know what the pre-mastermind discussion is, or what we're talking about there, you can jump over to our Google Plus community, and that's mindsetmasterycollective.com. Again, that's mindsetmasterycollective.com, and you'll see that up in the banner up on this event page. You'll see that URL there, as well as in the event page description. And of course, if you're on YouTube watching this, it'll be in the YouTube video description as well. So you can always find us in Mindset Mastery Collective G+ community. And every week, I post a little pre-mastermind discussion, so you can add your thoughts, and then we can talk about them on next week's discussion. So with that, we're just going to go ahead and close it out for today. Jump over to the community, add your thoughts, and then, of course, meet us here again next week, next Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern at SaturdayMorningMastermind.com. And we will see you later. Have a great week, and that's it for today. Bye for now. Bye, VG. I see you. Oh, wait, where's my stop broadcast button? There we go. Okay, bye.